Hello and welcome to yet another session by GEG Kolkata. We have our very own Nathan joining us all the way
Hello.
from Japan. So Nathan, over to you, and please tell us what we are going to be showcasing today.
All right, cool. Well, tonight we're going to be talking about something we've all been diving into in the last couple of years, especially the last year, with a lot of energy, I guess you'd say. Artificial intelligence. Obviously, the idea is not new, and AI in education is not new. But I can speak for myself that in the last maybe 6 months or so, I've been really reading a lot more and figuring it out to the point where I think I have something to share with people. And using it in my own teaching practice, and then actually now at a point where I'm teaching my students how to use AI. So today we're going to talk about first actually AI and what it is, because when people view this, I hope will give them a better understanding of when we say AI, at least in the way that we use it as educators, what we're talking about. And then a little bit about the law. So we're going to start this for about 5 and 10 minutes talking about things that every teacher, every school, every student, parent, should know about AI. And then after that, I'm going to show you some cool stuff that I think teachers might want to think about doing. I'm going to show you some stuff that that you can teach your students to do with AI ethically, and maybe a little bit of playtime if we have a bit of time to show you a couple of cool things. And essentially, that's where we're going.
Sounds fab. So let's get started.
All right, cool. Let me just share my screen here. Yeah, I'm going to share my entire screen. I'll tell everybody I'm going to bounce back and forth from my window to my slide deck. So we're not going to have like that pretty slide deck the whole time, just for the little bit. And then we'll kind of bounce back and forth. So you can see that we're good to go.
Yep.
All right. So the first little bit's the understanding AI part, and then we'll talk about teachers and students. All right. So basically, my name's Nate. Thanks again for having me, Sudipta. I always love, working with GEG Kolkata. I'm from GEG Nagoya in Japan, and I'm not going to read this list of EdTech stuff that I do, but I do consulting on the side for educational technology. But really, I'm a teacher at heart, just like hopefully most people watching this. So basically, I teach diploma program history and middle years program individuals and societies at Nagoya International School in Japan, and I love it. So I'm not going to read the description because I've already kind of mentioned it to you, but I am going to kind of break it down like this: how AI works, AI and the law, and then strategies for teachers and students. And we might not look at all of them, but at the end of this session, Sudipta is going to paste a link in the chat, or I'll do that. So you can kind of grab the stuff that I'm going to be showing you here and practice on your own. And then again, a little bit of playful stuff if we have time. And we don't really have a Q&A kind of environment right now, unless there's, seems to be a bunch of people. I'm looking at my phone. If people jump in and chat, we'd love to answer questions. And of course, Sudipta, please interrupt me with any kind of questions as we go through. So first, what is AI, right? No, it's not the Terminator, even though AI is the premise of the Terminator. AI for us, what does it mean and how does it work, right? Basically, the AI, there's different kinds of AI, and the AI that we use as educators for the most part is referred to as an LLM, a large language model. And this means that the AI, the machine, the computer, it's capable of processing human language and producing human language, right? And it does tasks that basically, we do. But remember, AI is trained to do what it does, and we'll get to that in a moment. But basically, it can create language and it can respond to language, which is why it's kind of nice when you forget to capitalize, or if you mistype something, because it's natural language, the AI understands what you mean. It can be used obviously for translating. It can be used for creative writing. Now, the creative part is a debate. So we'll get there eventually. Creative meaning like if you want to draft emails, or you want to write a quick poem that you need in the class kind of thing, but you don't have time to spend 10 hours crafting the best thing, that kind of deal. Of course, if you use AI and you use it to generate stuff, you should be transparent with anybody that you show it to, right? Just generated by Gemini or ChatGPT or whatever. Honestly, it's not Google search. It's not a search engine, but I do find it useful for just asking quick questions like, oh, I can't remember when was that, being a history teacher. And when I see the date, I'm like, oh yeah, right, that was it. Good for that. Could be good for creating stories, summarizing long pieces of text and things like that. And we'll get to some samples later. these words are key vocabulary that we all should really know and have ingrained in our minds, right? So again, AI basically is computers performing tasks that require human intelligence, right? So computers can't do this on their own. They need humans to guide it. And again, it understands and communicates in human language, depending on the different language that it's been trained in. And it can take, well, it can create visuals. It can identify objects in visual. Remember, when you get these pop-ups, when you want to log into something, or you want to, you have, rather than a code that you have, or a password that you have to give, you have to identify which parts of the image indicate a bus or a bicycle or a car or something like that. And you click those. Well, that's AI identifying objects in that visual data, right? And audio, video, and imagery and AI is still pretty much in its infancy, but it's growing, right? Expect to be able to make video and audio with AI you can do now, but it's only going to grow and grow. Data sets, basically this is the data, right? The information that is used to train the AI, and the key word here is train, right? AI has to be trained, and the thing that machine learning is basically. Machine learning means that AI learns from data, right? But because data is made from human beings, it has its biases. So remember, data set is that actual set of data. Machine learning is how the AI learns from that data. I hope I'm not going too quickly here. Generative AI. Now, this is the AI that we tend to use a lot as educators, right? And this is where you create new content, whether it's basic images. Like if you go to Canva or Adobe Express, for example, and you can type in whatever text you want, and then it makes an image for you. That's, text to image. That is AI, right? And it's generative because you're making something new. And that would be with text too. Summarize this paragraph for me in one sentence. That's generative. Generative means it's making something brand new, right? And that's where we get this idea of GPT, which means, and GPT of Chat GPT. GPT is actually not new. Generative pre-trained transformer, which means it creates something based on what it's been trained on, which is the data set, and it transforms it into human language. So, a big long data set with either numbers or whatever, and it turns it into Hindi or English or whatever. So that's a bit about how AI, or keywords you need to know. This is a short little list, but AI basically, we can get common tasks done really quickly with it. We can reduce our cognitive load. I do think these are two real benefits of AI. There is potential for creativity, and it depends on how you're being creative. Now, I would never say that if you get AI to write the lyrics for a song or a poem that you put out as your own, that's not being creative. You can be creative, though, when you ask the AI to create something with the input that you give. We have to remember the AI depends on the input. If we give good, detailed input, we're going to get better output. And the input could be creative, but the output is not your own original creativity, right? It's the machine's creativity based on your thinking and your input. That image on the side, on the right, I put that in there just to kind of highlight that when I was putting the first workshop on AI together, I thought, oh, what are some words that I should really highlight for people to understand AI? And I asked it to give me a slide for a slideshow, and that's what it gave me. So you can see how that connects to what I've just spoken to you about. Now, again, transparency, I did other research as well from a number of different sources to put it together, but I had that help me out. Save me a little bit of time. So let's chat a little bit about the law. And I'm going to go through this quickly too, because I don't want to spend lots and lots of time on that, because we all want ideas, right? That's why we're here. And I'm going to admit that the law I'm looking at, they're based in the United States, these laws. But again, things like ChatGPT, Gemini, which I'm going to use for the demo part today, is, American. And a lot of these companies, they're bound by American law. Now, that might look a little bit different in India or other jurisdictions in the world. But the point being, you have to understand the law when you're using this AI, especially with students, right? So basically, Google's Gemini, for example, is not directly subject to that FERPA in the United States, Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, nor COPPA, Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, and even state privacy laws. So you're not going to see AI written into these things. Maybe we will in the future, but ChatGPT or Gemini, that kind of thing, they're not directly responsible to those laws. Now, the question is why, right? Basically, those rules or regulations, they're designed to protect the privacy and personal information of, students and minors broadly, right? So the question is, how does this connect to schools and educational institutions? Well, basically, again, FERPA, COPPA, and state privacy laws, if you're using, for example, Gemini, right, Google's AI, well, the state laws, you have to make sure you comply with them in the ways that you use Gemini or any other AI. So whatever in those laws state about, children's protection and privacy and that personal information and that kind of thing, you have to make sure that your use of AI complies with that. Ultimately, the responsibility lies with the organization using the AI and or the individual using the AI. So I'm using Gemini right now in my private personal capacity from my private account. So whatever I do with it, I'm responsible for compliance with Japanese law or whatever jurisdiction I might be engaging with, right? So it's really important to keep those in mind. Now, some other things to think about: data privacy. The way to be more compliant, and I'm really making this simple here, right? One is data minimization, right? Limit the amount of data that you actually collect and process as an institution from AI. Data security, make sure you have really strong security at your school. If you're a teacher, you might want to ask your IT department, what they're doing or how strong your protection, your security is. And data retention as well. We collect data, but we do have to store it, right? So schools might clean out their servers and that kind of thing. So you should have policies about what data and how much of it you keep and what and when you get rid of it. Again, I'm trying to go quickly on this part. Consent, basically, there's informed consent where you have to let individuals know. I mean, schools should be letting their teachers and their parent community and student community know that they're collecting information from use with AI, for example, or anything else, right? And again, you need parental consent. For example, in the US, the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, that means if you're using AI, you've got to be compliant with that law. And because of that, you've got to get parental consent to gather any information from their student accounts used at school with Gemini and basically any other online tools as well. Par for the course, I think. Now, how can you be transparent? Basically, privacy notices to parents and children, students, and that kind of thing about how personal information is collected, used, shared, protected, that kind of thing. And then data access and correction as well. So let's say a student changes their name and they want other information deleted. Well, you've got to do that if they request that. Again, that might come down to the jurisdiction, but if you're in the US, you got to do it, right? So, think about that. The data you keep, retain, what you're telling people you're doing with that data, letting them know you're collecting it in the first place and that kind of thing. And again, the access to their own data as well as correcting that data when they want. So with schools, something else you need to know, Google, for example, they actually have human beings that read and annotate your chats or your conversations you have with Gemini. I'm honestly not sure about other AI companies, and there are plenty now. But at least with Google, human reviewers do look at it. They don't do that with audio, but they collect those conversations, right? And if you're typing into Gemini about something, I'm looking for a YouTube video that's really good with this, or can you direct me to something, anything, create a slide presentation with text, they might direct you to Google Slides. If you connect Gemini to any Google products, they're actually collecting that information. And again, this is not illegal and there's nothing really nefarious going on, but something you should know. The free edition of Gemini at the moment doesn't adhere to Google, like the core Google Workspace for Education and other apps, and as well Gemini Education or Gemini Education Premium. It doesn't adhere to those things. It will down the road, but the question is when. So if you're not using the paid versions of Google's education products or Gemini, keep in mind you don't have as much security as you normally would. Oh, and there's my daughter being cute in the background there. Go to sleep. So something schools can do, they can just turn it off. If you're using it privately, if you're under 18, you actually can't access Gemini, but you got to turn it on. apparently. I could be wrong on that, but I'll double check. So schools, my school has Gemini turned off because we're working on a policy and trying to figure out AI a little bit more. Develop either a responsible use policy with AI or create an addendum to whatever your existing policy is, right? It's a new technology. The big thing is we have to teach people how to use it. I'm already teaching my students how to use it because I know at home, many of them are already using AI for different reasons. So I'm trying to show them how they can use AI, for example, in our individuals and societies or history classes for the forces of good and how to remain academically honest, how to use it as a useful tool, not to be academically dishonest. We have to teach people how to use AI, and we're still learning, right? Okay, so now we're going to get into the practical strategies part. Let me take a quick drink of water. And we see that there are new people in the chat. If you want, go ahead and type in where you're from or say hello. And if you have any comments or questions. Now, I will highlight the document that you're going to see in a moment. This is the the Tiny URL. I'm going to share that with you later. I'm not going to be deleting it. So any of the text you see here that I'm playing with, feel free to use that stuff. It's not private information. If you want to play around with some of these strategies I'm showing you. So now what I'm going to do is kind of jump out of that. I'm going to come to this one because it's a little more complex. I'm going to start with this first one, though. And I'm going to go with document simplification. Document generation. I want to show you something that's not complicated, but it takes time. We'll do that later. So I'm going to go to this document right here. These are key and related concepts that we use in the IB for middle years program and beyond. So what I want to do, just note here. Now, why do I have to request access on that? That's silly. But anyway, I'm going to highlight that anyway because I know I can use it. Going to go down. I'll just take economics, geography. Oh, history's there. I'm a history teacher. I had to do that. All right. So I'm taking quite a lot of text here, right? I'm just going to copy that. Look, that's almost 4 pages of text. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to go into Gemini and I'm going to ask, please, well, you don't have to write please, it's a computer, but it's inherent in us, isn't it? Please take these key concepts and make them into one sentence each at the roughly grade 8 level. And I'm going to say Common Core, let's say United States. I'm not American, but I think Common Core is around a lot. So I'm going to then just paste. So you can see I've got this huge document that I just pasted in here, and I've got my prompt. Now, that's not a lot of detail going into it, right? So remember, the more detail you give, the better it is. So I'm just going to click on this, and I'm going to wait. Remember, it depends on your Wi-Fi. But now you can see here, I've got these one sentence, very basic explanations that I think maybe is easier for a grade 8 student to access in terms of understanding. Choice, we must choose between different options, understanding that choosing one means giving up another. Or consumption, we use products to satisfy our needs and wants. Now, this first one, choice, for example, in terms of economics, I don't feel it's that good. So what I'm going to do is change that myself. And this highlights my point that when we get AI to do these tasks for us, we do have to take the time to read through and make sure they're appropriate and suitable. But I've taken all of those and I've actually saved myself a lot of work. Remember, I'm not trying to be creative. I'm not designing something for a textbook. I'm creating a resource for my class, for my students. So that's one way that, okay, I've made that a little bit easier. I've not tried this before. I'm going to try this now, though, while I'm here. Can you create flashcards for each one? Now, I wonder, but probably not yet because I had to turn on other features apparently, right? But that's fine. So let me go to the next one here. So that's an example of a way to take big text and simplify it. So let's say you want to draft slides for a presentation, right? So here's my prompt. I'm actually going to, when you use this document, if you choose to do it later, I'm going to click, take this piece of text. So let's go back to Gemini. I can just start a new conversation right down here if I want, or I can go up here where it says new chat. If I want to keep things separate, like this one, you can see I've got a chat started and I might want to go back to that and click the edit button up here. Normally you can click edit, but I might want to keep that one going. I'm going to click new chat, and I've already got my prompt in place. So I'm going to put that right there. And coming to, let me just go back to the top of my document. Yeah. Text for presentation. So let's say I've got this big piece of writing. It could be whatever. I've decided to take just an essay I created for students as a sample, an imperfect essay because I wanted to use it as a sample. And I want a 5-slide presentation, and I just want the text, right? And if you notice here, I've said, take the piece of text, transfer it to a 5-slide presentation with bullet points. Be sure that all of the main ideas are addressed. Don't include a title slide or a concluding slide. I'll do that myself. And so you can see I've got all this text in here that comes from an essay. And I click on it. And now it's creating an image, but interesting, I haven't asked to do that. It's giving me some images that I might be able to use. All right, look at that. Okay, so it's given me causes of imperialism. It's got technological advancements, economic factors, all that. So I think these are too long, right? I don't want to put all that text in my slide presentation. Can you shorten each bullet point? Well, I don't type very well. Can you type each bullet point to about 3 to 4 words each? And now let's see what it does. So now you see it's giving me something that, I know what I want to say. So I can say technological advancements, steamships, railroads, telegraph. I can turn those into 3 little bullets. And so here now I've got something that's a little bit easier for me to use. I can have a nice image in the background. Let me ask, where can I get some related images for my backgrounds? Do you notice I'm having a conversation? This is why it's called ChatGPT or Start a New Chat. All right, so now it's given me some sources here, right, where I might find some good things. Look here, it's historical pictures, for example, right? Wikimedia Commons. So you see the point, right? I can take this big piece of text, turn it into something I can use. Now all I had to do is really copy and paste it into a slides deck and spend my time making it a little bit prettier. All right, let me just close this one up. And we'll give you maybe 1 or 2 because we got lots of time. I like this idea here, tailoring groups to whatever it is you're doing. So let me go down here and let me just highlight what I've done. Now, I do group students and I do use the random group generators. That does have its place. I don't do this all the time, but something I've tried is writing in certain things about my students, demographic information. And again, my biggest class has 19 students, so I can make the time to do this. But let's say I've got student A. Instead of student A, what I would do is write their name. And then I've identified certain things about them because I teach at an international school. I think it's fine for students to socialize with, other students of their own culture and language, and that it's a safety thing. But I also want them to diversify their experience, right? So notice I've got EAL students, new students, Korean speaker, students also that, they identify as a certain gender or have no gender identity. So what I'm going to do, actually, let me take this here. I'm going to scroll down here. And I'm going to ask it for 5 groups. So I'm going to start a new chat again, because I might want to come back to this. And I need 5 groups, evenly as possible. EAL students, as few EAL students as possible in the same group. Try to put as few new students in the same group so they can meet more people. And try to have a mix of spoken languages if possible. And try to mix based on gender identity when possible. If I had to do this on my own, think about that, right? Yes, we could do it, but boy, it would take a little bit of time. So ideally, if I know my students, then I can say, okay, this is kind of an interesting group, but at least I can see how the machine, right, the AI is putting the groups together. And so I can see here, I've got a couple of Chinese students, a couple of Japanese and a Korean student, and they've gone with no gender to non-binary, which is, the appropriate term, 1 EAL, and again, 1 new student. You get the idea. And again, the machine has made it, so I've got to go back and just, double check and make sure that things are in the right place. And ideally, your students well enough so that you could say, these two, they seem to be not getting along so well, so maybe I'll change, the groups. You get the point. All right, let's come back into another one here. Generating materials quickly. So here's one that I wish I had when I was teaching grade 8 ages ago. So I'm going to go to Gemini, start a new chat. I'm going to put in my prompt first. And now I'm going to go to my next thing. So this is a Korean folktale about why the sea is salty. And instead of just students read it, I thought maybe it'd be fun to dramatize it a little bit, right? So Korean historical drama. So I'm going to copy this. This is an English translation of a Korean folktale, mind you. And now what I would do is probably have 4 different folk tales. I might put in more detail with the number of students in that. But for now, I'm just going to put in all that text and I'm going to see what I get. So I have a narrator, I have a king, and I have the thief and a court official. So basically, I've got a really short drama that students can play around with. I'm going to put, can you make it longer and add one more character? It's the AI's thinking. Now we have the narrator, the king, the thief, the narrator, a court official, and a sailor. Okay, make it about 2 minutes long. And this could be like reader's theater as well, right? It doesn't have to be a drama. You take it as, with expressive reading. And little by little, I keep, giving inputs. In fact, maybe, can you put in emotive language? Let's see, emotive language I made a mistake, but the AI will understand that uses onomatopoeia, and I know I'm spelling that incorrectly. So now I've got softly stroking the mill. So now it suggests that you go to, oh, the mill, kind of thing. But you see, the thief here, it says, feigning innocence. Oh, really? Me? You can see the point. Like, I could create a much better lesson than here, read this, discuss it with your students, which has its place and it's important. Maybe this is something that we do in the last 20 minutes of the class just to bring it to life a little bit, or that we do before we actually read it to get the kids a little bit more interested in it. All right, let's do one more and then we'll jump into, let's see, lengthy summary notes. I think this is a good one, actually. So here's my prompt. And I'm going to start a new chat yet again. And so my prompt is take the following text notes, create a bulleted list with the main ideas, people, and events with headings and subheadings. And I've been doing this actually with a student of mine, a couple of students that are English as additional language learners. And it's from this document. Well, this is a new document that I'm going to be doing it with. But what I want to do is highlight, and again, this is a history class. Let me just pull this down. And I've already got some bullets in there, but I want to make it a little bit shorter. Okay, I'm going to go back that far. Sometimes if you put too much text in, it's going to say, whoa, that's way too much. I can't handle that. So let's see what it does for me. And remember, if you do this, you definitely have to check to see that everything's accurate because AI does make mistakes. Remember, human beings are the ones that create this data. So now you can see I've got some bullet points that might be easier for students to use, either EAL students understand, or I would argue students that are quite proficient in the language can use that as their review notes, right? Almost they could create flashcards from these. So you can take a lot of information and pare it down to its central core parts. But remember, you, the human, have to go in and make sure that everything's okay. Let's see. I'm not going to do this one with you, but that last one with the, well, you know what? I lied. We're going to do it. Let me go to my bookmarks here, or my history. I'm going to pull out those related concepts. And the prompt I'm going to do or use is create a 10-question open-ended quiz. Let's go with a new chat. I'm going to take all those related concepts, and maybe what I would do is actually take the shorter versions that we created earlier for this purpose, but here we go. I want a 10-question quiz. In fact, I'm going to say create there's a lot of stuff in there. So I'm going to put 3 10-question open-ended quizzes with the text. And let's see what we get. Quiz 1, economics. Look at that. Quiz 2, geography. Quiz 3, history. Now I'm going to say, can you make them multiple choice quizzes? And then I'm going to cut and paste them into Kahoot or Quizzes or Quizlet or whatever. So now I've got this. I've just saved myself a ton of work. Of course, I do need to know the correct answer, but can you bold the correct answers for me? Now I'm getting really lazy, right? Okay, look at that. So now I see scarcity. I see technology. I mean, I wish I had this 10 years ago. Thank you, Gemini. Let me get to the more complicated stuff here. I'm going to go right to the top here. And I'm going to go with document generation. Now, give me a moment to deal with this, right? I am going to take, now this is IB stuff. Let me give you a little bit of context first. We have our mark bands where we give students grades like a rubric, right? But we also have something called grade descriptors when we have to give an overall grade, in particular predicted grades for grade 11 and 12 students. So let me just pull this up. Oh, and I didn't give myself access. I apologize. So that's not going to be too helpful. Yeah, let me just okay, I might come back to this one and I'll log into my other, look at that. Let me actually show you this. So essentially, this is something I've given to my grade 11 and 12 students to show them how we take the assessment criteria, right? So, the knowledge and understanding, the communication, the investigation, the critical thinking, those criteria that we use for any essay that they might write as a test. And then I've taken the grade descriptors, which explain this is what 7 out of 7 is. This is what 6 out of 7 is. This is what 5 out of 7 is. And then by a process of putting in the grade descriptors, asking them to break it down into those 4 criteria, right? Knowledge, understanding, communication, investigation, critical thinking. Can you break that down into a rubric with those? And then I took, the descriptors from the different mark bands for the essays, and I said, can you break it down into these? And so that process took time, and it did take time. But I'll tell you, my students, they have a better understanding of it rather than me explaining it with 2 or 3 different documents. So I'm glad I put the time into it. And now I realize I have to open that access up to everybody else. So my apologies on that one, but I think you get the idea. You can merge documents and put them into a way that helps students understand, or maybe even just have a rubric. Feel free to jump in anytime, Sudipta, and let us know how we're doing here. So I'm going to pull up the slideshow again for this one.
It's going fab, Nate. I'm just admiring all the amazing things you're telling us.
There's some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah. And the kind of ideas you're giving, it's just actually fantastic, for teachers. So I wish we had this 10 years back.
I know, right? And let me point out too, folks, like all these ideas, like that, creating that rubric for my students. I got that from my math teacher and my DP coordinator at school. Both of them fabulous teachers. And from looking at books and, the odd idea, the simple one, right? Let me create a quiz, right? By playing around with the AI, that gives you more ideas. It's like, oh, actually, can you make 3 different quizzes for economics, geography, and history? And now can you make them multiple choice? Can you bold the correct answer? I haven't done that before, but I will in the future. So
Great.
Now let's talk about how you can talk to your students using AI. So what I'm going to do is show you some things that I have done with my students, not all of them, but some of them, to show them how they can use AI and remain academically honest. When I talk to my students about this, and I've had a few conversations, I remind them, remember, even my generation, I could have gone to the school library, opened up a book or an encyclopedia, copied everything, and then handed it in, right? Or copied a lot of it and handed it in. My teacher would have to go find the book and check it and that kind of thing. Academic dishonesty is nothing new. Yes, it's faster. yes, it could be a little more difficult to detect, depending. I do find that if a student submits some work and I'm kind of like, that doesn't sound like what you normally write and normally how you speak, I have had,
Exactly.
pardon?
Exactly. I mean, I feel we as teachers can definitely identify I mean, what's actually original, what they've written themselves, and where they might have just taken that extra help. And I think that's a fantastic idea, what you're talking about. We could have copied things 10 years back, and I'm sure which we did, but
Sure.
it's the same thing in a different way.
Yeah, and you know what? I think it's really important to tell, students, young people, teenagers, hey, listen, I get it. We did the same thing. It was just slower. Um, but it's the same thing, whether it's, 40 years ago or today. It's academic dishonesty. And, it's probably hard. I mean, it's whether it's harder to detect or not. I mean, if you have 40 students in a class, yeah, that's going to be hard if you don't really know all of them, right? Especially in the beginning of a school year. Um, AI detectors are not perfect. Some AI detectors, they'll take, try it, write your own work, and then they're going to say, oh, you might have got that from here, you might have got that from there. So it's not so easy or simple as relying on an AI detector to see if the student copied the work or not. The only thing I think we can do is sit down with a student and have a viva voce and say, hey, listen, I want to chat about, like, I don't like grabbing students on the spot, but when we're talking about, do you really own this thing? You have to get a meeting and sit down and say, hey, listen, I just want to ask you some questions about the content of your essay. So please just explain them to me. The reason why I'm doing this is there's a lot of language here that you tend not to use. I just want to see that it's as much of your own as it is. And remember too, sometimes students, they do this and they don't mean to be academically dishonest. It is, they make a mistake, or perhaps it's a crutch. So we have to really give students the benefit of the doubt, and then you have that discussion with them, and it's like, yeah, this is really not your work. You got a lot of help, didn't you, with either Google search or online sources or whatever. So let's talk about making you independent, right? And again, tell them I get it. I'm sure I've done that in the past and that kind of thing. So here's some prompts. I'm going to pull a couple of these out just as a sample, right? And again, I teach the students. This is one I used with my students back in April of this year. We were about to get into World War One. And I said, everyone, let's have a conversation about AI. It's the beginning of a new unit. Here's an opportunity for us to kind of look at how we can, do something about learning more about World War One without just finding the answers, right? To really challenge ourselves a bit. I will mention that before I did this with the students, they had whiteboards, no computers, no devices, and in groups they had to brainstorm what they know about World War One, which is very little for the most part. Even the kids that like history and they're into war history. Too bad so much of our history is about war, but anyway. They didn't really have a lot. So I said, okay, folks, here's an example of how we can find out what we need to learn about World War One. So I'm going to start a new chat again. And I've just simply written, what overall themes do I need to learn to understand the outbreak of World War One, the First World War, the outbreak, right? And so here it talks about imperialism and colonial rivalry, militarism, the arms race. If you're a history teacher, you know the main acronym, right? Militarism, imperialism, alliances, and nationalism. And it has a few other, one other thing here, the immediate trigger, the assassination of the Archduke. So that's a good starting point. But let me just kind of close this up and that. But I'm going to go back. I'm going to take another one. Again, just copying and pasting so I don't waste time typing here. But I've got what concepts in history are most relevant and why. In IB, we use 6 concepts. So these are concepts, but not necessarily the ones we use with the IB. But again, it gets into nationalism. It gives a definition and relevance. This is really good for students. How about these concepts? Let me just, actually, I don't have to correct myself here. I'm going to put perspective, change, continue, continuity. Actually, maybe I'll put them all in. Cause, consequence, and significance. All right, so those are the 6 IB concepts. So I've thrown that in there. Note, I haven't written anything about World War One for that, because the the AI knows I'm still talking about World War I, right? So then it gives me this stuff that is related to the IB history concepts, and now I have a sense of where I need to go. This is not an essay. This is stuff that students can take note of what they should be researching, right? You have a big research assignment. There you go. I'm not done yet, though. I know that with causes of World War I, they assign blame. So in this case, I want to introduce schools of historical thought to my students. So I'm asking, what do schools of historical thought argue? And I'm going to put that in. And this is, again, it knows we're talking about the causes of World War I, not World War I. And so the traditional view, which would also be called orthodox, revisionist, structuralist, recent trends, multiple causation, which is actually more revisionist. I'm going to type in here, what would the Annales school say, which is kind of a very unique school of thought that developed in France. It explains what the Annales school is, and then it goes into some ideas. And again, though, it's AI. It's not all perfect, so I have to make sure I have a firm understanding of what that is. Let's say, what would feminist history, her story, right, suggest? Okay, women on the home front, suffrage in the war, women's experiences of war. So we're not now talking about causes, but now we're getting a little bit deeper, right? So you get the point, though. Anyway, you can try those prompts later on your own if you choose to do so. Let me show you a few more things here. Starting an investigation. Let's do this. And again, I'm a kind of a history guy. But let's go with a new chat. I'm going to plug that in. I'm studying the scientific revolution. I'm unsure of overall themes. What do I have to know about it in a global context? Topics, themes, people, historical concepts. What do I need to know? And I'm just going to copy these just to make the next bit a little bit quicker. So I'm going to enter that. And again, I get some themes that I should be looking at, right? I'm looking at the people here and I'm noticing, wait, what about non-white Europeans? And so now they give me a few non-white Europeans. How about women scientists? Right? So this is what students can use to have a chat to kind of figure out a little bit more, right? So now we get a few more people. I mean, I was talking about her just yesterday, last week. All right, so there's another example, right? In fact, let me just take this a little bit deeper. Let me get rid of that one. Let me get rid of that one. All right, so what are some key inventions, people, events, and things like that? That actually gave me a little bit more, right? Some of the key things. Let me get that third question in there. And again, just because I'm having a conversation here, right? I'm having a chat. Prominent historians of the scientific revolution. So these are people that I could actually look for, and books I could look for and other sources and that kind of thing to really get deep into my investigation. I want to do an English literature one now for an example. It is kind of connected to history. I was talking about Mary Shelley's Frankenstein today. I'm going to stick with the same chat with this one. All right, so I want to know that kind of thing. How do I start with Frankenstein? But I asked about the historical context of the book because I know it was written in the 1800s, right? And who might have influenced her. So I got some ideas right there about her personal, early history. So I might want to dig a little bit more into that. What were her motives? I get a little bit more. Why would she publish this thing? What was her, her purpose? Let me get another one. What was the intended audience, or who was the intended audience? Do you see, like, through this series of questions I'm asking, I'm getting all these ideas that I might use for my investigation. Let's go with, let's see, getting back into, all right, let's go. What theme should I be considering for a literary approach? Put that in, and I'm going back to themes, but for a literary critique of the book. The dangers of unchecked abandon, then the role of science and technology. I love it, right? Let's just do one more. Who are some authoritative literary critics that I could talk about the book Frankenstein? And so then I get a list here. So you see my point here, right? We can teach students to use AI in very productive ways, right? And academically honest ways. Let's take this essay. And here's what students can do. Students have written an essay. And I'm going to go into Gemini. Let's start a new chat for this one. Students want to get feedback on an essay. So now we're switching to another thing here, a little bit more complicated. And this is the essay. Is that the one? No, we're going with the, let me just go to the top here again. Students finding out what you don't know, deepening your understanding, seek feedback. There we go. All right, so I have my essay, and let's say I want this right here. Let me copy the whole thing, actually. I'm going to start this anew. I've told it that I have I've got a context sentence, I've got a topic sentence, my main points, and a thesis. So I want it to give me feedback on my introduction, right? Just on my introduction. And so I put that in. This is when I can't reach the teacher. I can't hang out with my friends. And, you know, again, it's saying it's strong. I wrote this. Obviously, if I was in grade 10, then I'd be a good writer, perhaps. And then I want to do that. And then notice here, I've got, now I would like to check. So I'm going with my 2 main body paragraphs that I have here. I'm going to pop that in. And I've asked it to look at using the Peel method. And I've given it, if you were to look here, like what the Peel method is. And so it looks point, evidence, elaboration, link to thesis. And I'm going to go to my last one. And I'm deliberately doing this deliberately. Let's see. How did my points in my main body align with my introduction? Overall, it maintains strong connection between the intro and the body inclusion, paragraphs. So now I want to go back, and now I would like to look at my conclusion. Do you see my process here? Students might actually do this. You as the teacher could give them the prompts, actually. Check my introduction in this way. Check my main body paragraphs in this way. Check my conclusion in this way. It can be improved by using recap rather than, you know, the things I asked. So even as a teacher, I get this idea, oh, recap, let's do that. You get the point, but I'm not finished yet. Here are my assessment criteria that I'm using. In fact, for this, I'm going to take the whole essay. Can you evaluate the essay with this assessment criteria? Let me just scroll down. So now I'm going to put in my whole essay with the assessment criteria that the students know they're going to be graded on. Now, remember, this is AI. It's not a human being. So you do have to go in and, you know, the student has to know that they have to make a decision. Which feedback might actually be useful and which feedback might not be? But here, students now have another way to get a little bit of feedback from the AI. And yes, I have done this with my students. And will they do it? I'm not really sure. I haven't gone to them yet and say, so how many people did do that? But there's a chance you can teach them to use it for the forces of good, right? Fine tuning, that's the prompts that I just showed you. I'm not going to take time to get into Flint because I notice we're reaching 50 minutes here. We can do that another time. Flint is a great online platform for, you know, any subject really, where the students, you upload all the resources, you upload your assessment criteria, you watch each conversation as it happens in real time, and then you can actually grade it, or you can give the AI the option to grade it, and students get feedback from them, and then you can grade it later. Check out Flint. It's pretty cool, but we don't have time for it today. Maybe we can do that down the road, Sudipta. And if you want to check it out, here's some examples of, you know, the topics and learning objectives, and then the simulation you choose. You could be an historian at a symposium. You could be an investigative journalist, that kind of thing. You can really fine tune it, and you can choose. You can actually upload with Flint. You could upload a PDF document written by a PhD candidate, and then say, when you upload the document, make sure this resource is at a grade 10, you know, whatever level. Fabulous stuff. I do want to show you a couple of things that are kind of fun. This is the quick and the playful. All of these I'm not going to show. I do think I'm going to stop sharing my screen and come back with the audio link, because I think this is kind of fun. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to share it again. Because you're going to want to see this. I have honestly not done this. I've only played with it. But let's see. I'm going to share my Chrome tab. We'll go with that. Let me open the tab first, though. This is called Suno. And
so
just
you stop presenting.
Yes, I'm deliberately doing that because I want to show Suno and I need the audio.
Okay.
Right. So here we go. Now you can see my screen, right? Okay, let me sign in here. I'm going to go with let's go with Google. Sorry. And I'm going to choose my school account, make sure I don't Now Suno owns the rights to this, but I created this song just by telling it, this is the song I want you to create. This is the ambiance I want to give you to give. So I'm going to go to my library, and basically the prompt I gave was, let me just kind of make sure that doesn't play yet. So what I said is, I want you to create an optimistic song about the Irish potato famine, where the father is leaving the family to work and is upset, but also optimistic that he can, get, support his family and that kind of thing. And this is what it gave me. And I told it too, I want a penny whistle, I want a bodhrán, I want violin, acoustic guitar. And let me just, hopefully that's not going to be too loud. I'm not going to play the whole thing. I'll jump to the chorus in a moment.
Fields once green, now barren dust. Father's gone, can't stay with
now let me jump to the chorus.
Hunger no, mother's tears of children cling, they can't abide.
Oh yeah,
empty bowls and empty hands. Saw him leave for distant lands. Oh, the famine, oh, the grief, lost in shadows, can't find.
Okay, now I think that was worth sharing, right? So here's the point. What I'm thinking I'm doing is one of those days where it's the end of a unit or things are just a bit drab. I'm going to get the students, I'm going to say, okay, everything we've done in this unit on this topic, for example, we're just finishing up things like the scientific revolution, the Enlightenment from a global context. And I'm going to get the students to write a prompt for this song. If I had more time, what I'd probably do is, just write, a 3-stanza song and then explain how you want it to appear in, as a real song. For example, this table, they're into hip hop. So write a hip hop song using these 4-line stanzas. We want it to be, kind of techno, make it sound like, maybe a Dead Mouse or something like that. We like Japanese pop songs, make it like Kyary Pamyu Pamyu, and make it sound bright and vibrant and that kind of thing. And then listen to them. I think that'd be kind of fun. Like you as the teacher afterwards, I want to share this tab, but you, the teacher, afterwards could, put it together and then bring it to school the next day, build some excitement. Like, all right, do you want to see what the AI did with your songs? I don't encourage students to really do this. It maybe not be productive. I do want to highlight too things like different art AI that students can play with. There's a lot out there. And I'm going to wind things down here. So basically, I'm not going to read through these, but if you come to the slide deck later, which I'll share in the chat once we're done here, hopefully I've given you a pile of different ways you can use AI in the classroom and ways that you can show students and how they can use it. Get them to write stuff and get them to get AI to create a drama. Like every group has a different number of students. You have 4, you have 5. These are 3. Okay, so take the content that we created and tell the AI to make a skit or a reader's theater you're going to read or something like that. Yes, you can create images with AI. I'm deliberately not doing that because ChatGPT and Gemini, I find they're still not as good. Canva, Adobe Express, they do some really cool stuff. But maybe it's usually not what I'm really looking for. But anyway, so feel free to have a look at these on your own. I'm going to stop sharing right now. Let me just escape. And I am going to get a link that I can share in the chat with everybody. So you can come and try these things out on your own. And if not, then let me just put join the chat here. Okay, I'm not logged into the chat. So Sudipta, I'm going to give you the tiny URL for that slide deck. And I'm going to give you a tiny URL. I'm preparing this for another conference. So just to let people know that, that's the one that I gave you is actually the
Should I share that one?
Share that, please. Yep. The one is the document with all the text that you might want to use to play with. Just saves you time from finding your own text. And also, Sudeep, if you could share the, let's see, that's not the, that's, yeah, presentation. That's the slide deck that I just went through. So you can, make a copy of it or just bookmark it. I'm using this down the road. So play on your own, right? And the more we use it, the better we're going to understand it, I think. And we, have to be careful of how we use AI, but we also want to ourselves and students use it for the forces of good. When I use AI to generate anything I share with students, I always tell them, just like I would cite an image or I cite a source where I got some text or something like that. In the same way, I just like, yeah, I got it from Gemini. It's academically honest.
Thanks, Nate. This was an amazing session, and so much to learn and so much to kind of take in. And this is going to be such an amazing thing. And thanks to YouTube, anyone can access it anytime. So that's the best part of it. So thank you so very much once again for doing this fantastic session for GEG World Cup. And a very happy Diwali to you. I heard that you're celebrating Diwali in Japan.
We're celebrating Diwali in our school on the week after next, I believe. So they're gathering people who's going to come and all that, but we're going to have Bollywood dance. We're going to have some great Indian food. And, my little girl is 1 year old. I want to, I want to bring her out and have some fun and get her to say, hey, yeah, this is what cool people in India do, man.
Yeah, that's great.
So, yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. So we'll say bye-bye to the audience here and look forward to another great session from you very soon.
Okay, happy Diwali, everyone.
Happy Diwali.